So without further ado, I would like to move on into this debate and actually introduce the first speaker from the proposing side, who is no other than Mr. Benjamin Katabira from BUK Holdings. Please give him a hand.
Thinking is they are employing one's mind rationally, evaluating things. And small is simply saying that limited in size. Now, small in this case, to answer that question, small in this case does not necessarily mean that starting small, but we are simply saying that thinking small. These are two different things. Zambian business, yes, think small, and it's important that we admit that Zambian business entrepreneurs think small, because that is a way forward. Admitting that there's a problem is a solution in the end. Because we might ask ourselves, how many Zambian entrepreneurs are actually, if you go to Pakra, out of 500 registered Zambian businesses are making more than $1 million per annum. There are quite few. My investigations were that they're less than 10%. Now, the issue is this: when people start businesses, where do they go from 1 year from now, or 2 years from now, or 10 years from now? Usually, Zambian business thinks small because of the impaired vision or shallow goals that they set. And I would want to clarify that, because many business houses today, they want to go, or business entrepreneurs want to go into business just to have bread and butter. But they forget that business is to offer a service, a deep concern that there is a problem in a community where they stay, in a country, and they are going into a business to offer a solution to the problem in the community. But many want to go into the business because they want to offer bread and butter, or to buy a Range Rover, or to satisfy their family. There's also personality traits, negative mindset, where you're saying these limiting beliefs where it's impossible to do that. Only the European will do it, only the Indian will do it, only the Lebanese will do it, only the Chinese can do it. With these limiting beliefs is actually killing Zambian entrepreneurs, and they fail to grow. Secondly, we have Zambians that just imitate. Imitation is limitation. Whose dream are you riding on? Is it your dream or somebody else's dream? You don't know that person's strength. Just because Benjamin is doing business of spare parts, you want to join in. That is, you don't know my strength. You don't know where I obtain my goods. And you don't know the tricks that I've employed in the business. So imitation is actually limitation, and this is killing business in Zambia. Fear of failure. Many Zambians fear failure. It's public perception. What are they going to think if I fail? Or what are they going to think if I stumble? I really fail to grow my business. These public perceptions, where you feel that people must applaud you, is actually killing the creativity and ability of self-actualization. Business is all about risk undertaking. You need, of course, these are calculated risks. Thinking average, where, I said it, where you're simply saying, I should have a few kwachas, and that is all. As long as I have a shelter, I've put bread and butter in my home, that is fine. But the thing is this: we need to think above average. I, for one, I was very active some years back in sport, and today you can see me, I've grown a 1-pack instead of 6-pack. Most times I woke up in the morning, I set my goals to say I'm going to run 2 kilometers. Yes, that's how far I can go. At 2 kilometers, I'll get tired when I finish the 2 kilometers. But the truth of the matter is, if I set 10 kilometers, to run 10 kilometers, I'll do it. The determination and the energy will be proportional to the goals that I set. But many Zambians today set shallow goals, and as such, we cannot grow our business. Lack of entrepreneurial spirit, we've seen it all. It's entrepreneur. This is lack of information. Entrepreneurs, just because I've connected somewhere, I have the business, I have the tender I can supply. But what do you do to grow the business? And many times, entrepreneurs have ended up failing 2-3 years down. Historically, of course, we're coming from socialism, and of course, we didn't have much from our forefathers in the socialism. But that is not the case. We are now in a stage whereby we are simply blaming everyone. No, because of socialism, that's why we've not grown. Because of this one. And you blame the British, or you blame the people that colonized us. For how long? When did the British leave? 53 years ago, and we're still living. Okay. A lack of succession planning is one of the reasons why we cannot grow. We fail to pass on the mentor to the young ones or the people that we employ. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was Mr. Katabira from BUK Holdings. And now we move on to people with an opposing view towards what he said and the motion at large. We're going to have the first speaker from the opposing team, who is no other than Chilunga Puta Danham from Kamon Bank. Please give her a hand.
Hi, everybody. So, Zambians today, we clearly understand that jobs are not always easy to find. You say, yeah, right, you work in the bank. But we know that according to a 2015 survey, less than 1 million Zambians are considered formally employed. But I think we all know that the informal number is much, much, much more gigantic than this number, or else there's no way we would be surviving as a nation. Young Zambians know what is missing. They know what is needed. Ideas are there. The challenge is turning those ideas into reality takes time. So the success stories take a little bit longer in Zambia. This is why we are arguing against the motion and believe that Zambian entrepreneurs do not think small, and indeed they think quite big. The challenge they have is that it's a little bit difficult to get your foot in the door sometimes in our great country. And it's a little bit difficult to have a fast story, but that doesn't make us small thinkers. In Zambia, there are some realities that we need to face. It's expensive to operate a business, all right? We have erratic power sometimes, no offense to our great Zesco. We have high employee costs. There's health, there's a lot of other costs that come with the employee besides just the salaries. And actually, even from a cost point of view, just in terms of a salary, Zambia is not cheap, all right? We don't have cheap labor like, for example, India or China. We lack the basic infrastructure in certain areas just to conduct our normal business. So then if you're an entrepreneur trying to get a business going, you also have to put in the infrastructure that in other countries you might already find exists, all right? Financing, funding, it's not easy. It can be costly and sometimes difficult to access. The reality is that if you go to a commercial bank, the rates are anywhere from 25 to 35% off, but 25 to 35%. And if you are an entrepreneur, a startup, starting from the beginning or even trying to grow your business, you don't necessarily have 25 to 35% interest to pay. And that's even better. Try going to a microfinance that can charge you 50, 60, 70% interest. All right? So where are you going to get the money? I mentioned a lack of infrastructure. Let's even look at transport costs. It's expensive to bring things in. And we're not always the greatest manufacturing company. So if you need to bring in something for your business, whether you're supplying or you're manufacturing, you've got to probably fly it in. Or even if you bring it in by ship, it lands at some port in Dar es Salaam or Durban or somewhere, and you've still got to get it to Zambia, and it goes through ZRA, and they charge you. And then what kind of profit do you get on top of that? So we don't always have things to manufacture locally, but this does not mean that we are small thinkers. The advice, the information on how to properly run a business and grow it is not always there. As I said, in Zambia, the trouble is the success story is not always in our face. So we don't always see the successes. We have lots of foreign entities that we are fighting against. We're competing against big companies. How can I be a small Cheers grocery store fighting against ShopRite? All right? We need real examples of success. And today, luckily, with things like Nyamuka Business Conference, we're seeing some of those successes, but they are very recent. And unless they're in your face, you don't always see that. And one of my colleagues will discuss that in a minute. We've seen examples from Trade Kings, Diwali, Zona, Media 365, but it took time for them to get they were. Even financing from things like credit cards don't necessarily exist in Zambia, but we're getting there. Getting there does not mean that we're thinking small. It's not easy for a startup or informal workers to access examples, to access financing, to access information. We have this Nyamuka workshop, but how many workshops are there to teach us on how to get big? Not think big, but get big. So today, ladies and gentlemen, think about this. Zambian entrepreneurs are not small thinkers. They're very big thinkers. We just have a couple of challenges to overcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lunga. Awesome presentation indeed. So right about now, we're going to move on to the second proposer, who is no other than Tembwe Mutungu from Offfield Holdings. Please give him a hand.
So, our position still remains the same, and it is essentially threefold. Number one, we don't need highly capitalized businesses, and every environment is going to be volatile, uncertain, complex, and have ambiguity. We do have an issue with limiting beliefs. And number three, for businesses to grow and to succeed, they need focused and realistic plans. And the fact that we don't have them is driven by the fact that we have businesses who think small. Just to get into each one of these points. The point just about capitalization of businesses, access to capital, dealing with challenges, dealing with struggles, the fact that success stories take long. This is just a fact of business, and I think it's a fact of business the world over. Look at the case of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a country that deals with hyperinflation, dealing with political instability, all the rest of this. Last year I was judging at the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Awards in Johannesburg. There was not a single Zambian company there, but there was a Zimbabwean company. Why was there a Zimbabwean company there? Simply because of the fact that their approach to business, or their approach to the challenges that they faced, was to look at the obstacles in front of them, to work around them, to think through the fact that the value of their currency was changing minute by minute, disregard the fact that they're a manufacturing business, and work through and develop an ERP that would allow them to overcome that challenge. Look at the case of Nigeria. Nigeria is a country that deals with 8 hours of power. Right? We're complaining about load shedding. We have 8 hours of load shedding, and that's an issue for us, and this is the reason that we can't move forward. Nigeria has 16 hours of load shedding, not 8, rather than 8. And, if I were just to share anecdotally what I think is in the Nigerian spirit, I remember once seeing a man on the road. There was a lady sort of trying to pull into traffic. There was a man walking down the road, and he saw the opportunity. It was his entrepreneurial spirit. Here's a need right in front of me. Let me stop the traffic, help this lady into the street. She got into the street, she pulled out some money, gave it to him, and he went on his way. What is that a testament to? It is a testament to the entrepreneurial spirit, which we are saying is essentially lacking. I think, sorry, I'm not sure about the time here. I think, as we talked about the fact that starting small is not the same. Thank you. Starting small is not the same as thinking small. I think, as it relates to thinking small, if we did have this plethora of small businesses that were actually looking and identifying opportunities that were true niches, so opportunities that could be built on and were essentially going from 0 to 1, to borrow an idea from Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, instead of trying to go from 1 to N. Going from 1 to N is basically copying everybody else. You're multiplying the number of butcheries that exist within this geography. Going from 0 to 1 is essentially saying, hey, here's an opportunity, here's a gap, nothing here exists, I'm going to go from 0 to 1. The next step thereafter is, I think, the third point that is captured by a few things that my colleague already shared, is having a focused and realistic plan as we go along. And so that is then saying, okay, fine, once I've started my business, now I'm going to look, now I'm going to think through, how do I actually turn this into first a local monopoly, and then maybe a regional monopoly, and grow out from there. I know we made reference to the story of Zona. I remember actually when Zona was still mobile money transactions 7 years ago, and they came to a small shop in Kapiri asking them to be an effective payments provider on their behalf. I think the issue for them is that they worked through, right, saw the opportunity and then kept on thinking about the end goal and the end state. I think the last and final point is just really stressing on the idea that businesses in Zambia need to really start focusing, right, on really being good at one thing, and instead of really essentially ending up as average at everything and good at nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matungu. Right about now, we're going to move on to the second speaker from the opposing side, and this is no other than Mrs. Kayula Siame, the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Trade, Commerce and Industry. Please give her a hand.
Good morning, everyone. From a personal perspective, and also from an official perspective, Zambian entrepreneurs do not think small. And I think my colleague has mentioned quite a few important points related to this. And I think we cannot say just because somebody is in Zambia and they have not taken up a simple opportunity, then they think small. Now, the reason we are saying that Zambian entrepreneurs do not think small is because Zambian entrepreneurs have shown a lot of passion, first of all. And I think as an entrepreneur, you start with your passion. And that passion leads you into becoming a business person. And I think the examples have been given, such as Trade Kings and so on, Madison Insurance, which has grown and is also based in Tanzania. These are just examples. So Zambian entrepreneurs start with that passion. And I think you cannot relate the constraints that they face as being them thinking small. And I think that's what we're talking about. We are saying that they do not think small, but what limits them is some of the things that are in the environment. For example, the survey that was done by the World Bank, I think in 2016, indicated that about 96% of SMEs have bank accounts. So why would they have bank accounts if they were not thinking of trying to get some resource, some working capital? But only 16% of those have access to loans. So we can see that there's a barrier. Because if those 96 who had loans, those 96 who have accounts were also given loans, I think it will be a different story. They'll be able to grow their business. So we should make sure that we understand that it's not that they think small, but there are barriers that are keeping them from growing. There are barriers that are keeping them from diversifying their products or their services in this economy. Secondly, we have other aspects that also relate to the barriers that we're talking about. For example, ICT infrastructure. Today, we're talking about digitalizing the economy. We're talking about smart solutions. We're talking about e-commerce. I think the global economy now is talking about going e-commerce. And a lot of our entrepreneurs are coming and getting a lot of products, building platforms. We have .com Zambia that has built platforms that can support them. But look at the infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure that we have in Zambia. It is not adequate to support them. So you cannot say because the infrastructure is not there, so they are thinking small. No, we should not equate thinking small with what is not provided in the environment. We have Nyamuka, Zambia, the business plan competition. How many people have applied for loans? I think that's showing you that people are thinking big. Our Zambian entrepreneurs are thinking big. There's demand and there's appetite. All of you who are seated here, I think if there was no appetite, we probably have had maybe 3 tables. I think people in this room are testimony to the fact that we Zambian entrepreneurs have an appetite and we are thinking big. Zambian entrepreneurs have come a long way from the time we liberalized our economy in 1991, when there were only a few people. Now, because of that, the Zambian government has created different funds, the CEC fund, the youth fund, the women's entrepreneur funds, and they are not adequate to support businesses and the aspirations that Zambians have. I can tell you as a fact. The demand is so great that we are trying to see how do we support them. And those funds you're talking about are talking about people who are already in business. What about the startups? We have hundreds and hundreds of startups who want to get funding. But right now, we do not have venture capitalists who can support them. So it's not that they are thinking small, no. It's just that we haven't set the proper infrastructure to support the startups. And that's what that's what we're trying to do going forward. And that's what all of us must do. All of us must support these startup funds so that we can ourselves support our own Zambian persons, our own Zambian businesses. So it's not good enough to just say they are small, they can't do this and they can't do that and so on. No, it is the infrastructure, it is the environment, it is some of the technical barriers, it is the lack of technology which they don't have, which is not supporting them. So we continue with our argument and we say that Zambian entrepreneurs are thinking big, they are not thinking small, and people in this room are testament to that fact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam PS. That was really convincing to the heart. Well, moving on, right about now, we're going to open the floor to you, the audience, to actually fire some blows to whichever side of the panel you want to either attack or even support. So what's going to happen is we're only going to have 2 slots. So that means 2 questions from the audience. So as you can see, there's microphones surrounding this auditorium. So you could kindly pick the closest microphone to you. So probably by a show of hands, those who would like to ask questions, either to the proposing side or the opposing side, or actually a contribution. Yes, please. So you may actually walk to any mic that's closest to you, introduce yourself, where you're coming from, and to whom you're referring the question. The question you shall ask will be answered by the summarizers of either panels in front of us. Please go on.
My name is Lima Lima. I'm a semi-finalist. Mine is a contribution rather than a question. And it's a rather unfortunate contribution, as I'm pretty much for the proposition that we think small. I'm from the Copper Belt, as I mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm from the Copper Belt. And one of our earlier speakers talked about copper mining and us as Zambians not really getting much from it. This is, I guess, because most of the mines are owned by foreign entities. But opportunities have been available for us locals to own these mines. I'll give a simple example. Of course, all my evidence is anecdotal. I like to state that. I won't quote any statistics. There was a dump site, I think about 10 years ago, probably, that was given to what they're calling small and ex-miners and small-scale miners on the Copper Belt, in the town of the Copper Belt. Pretty much given free of charge by the states to help out locals. What did the locals do? Sold it to Chinese. And what did the Chinese do? They came up, set up a simple acid leaching plant. Acid leaching is a way to get copper from copper oxides. It's a very cheap way to get copper from the copper oxides. A process, I may state, was invented in Zambia in the 80s by ZCCM. So there we don't have any technological problems there because it's a process that we invented. So the Chinese come, set up it's a simple plant, it's a small plant. and from it are able to make upwards to 150 tons of copper in a month. You can do the maths by calculating what the price of copper is, whatever it is here. There is an opportunity. There was opportunity. The copper was there, free of charge. The technology was there because we invented the technology. So I'm sure we could dig up people from the archives who knew how to do it. Probably the only thing that was missing was the startup capital. But with the assets that they had, I'm sure they could go to some place to have that availed to them. So I think the problem that we had there was the people who were given that opportunity were thinking small. And they thought the small payday from the Chinese outfit that came to offer them money for that dump was better than creating a small world-class copper manufacturing plant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our request for another question or contribution, please go on. Please be advised that make your contribution or question as brief as possible, at least in a minute or a minute 30. Thank you.
Mandela, I'm a photojournalist. When I lived in Zambia, I did not have even $10 on me. That's not my story. It's a story for my fellow countrymen from Rwanda. But if you look around, do you still off less than $10? There is a saying who said that according to the law of selection, or the law of selection, those are immigrants who have got more chance to become richer than the indigenous. At the time I was arriving, I've heard people say that money is the ways, ours is land. I'd like to challenge those people. Sorry, as you know, in Zambia, let me not misquoted. But it has been, I heard it from here. Ndarama Nizabo, Maron, yes. Thank you. That's my case.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will allow the last final question. Please approach the microphone.
My name is Precious Goswell, semi-finalist. I have a question or contribution to the opposing team concerning trademarks. A trademark is a sign, name, or logo that distinguishes one company from another. And I have a few statistics with me. That's in 2015, we had 1,239 trademarks registration in Zambia, and Packer can bear witness with me. In Israel, the same year, we had over 144,490 trademark registrations. Now, a trademark shows the competitiveness that occurs in a country, and if we have less trademark registrations happening in Zambia, it means people are not actually competing in their businesses, which means Zambians are actually thinking small. So I would want the opposing team to challenge that fact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And right about now, we're going to move on to the last and final part of this debate, where the third speakers from either side summarize and also answer any question or even use the contribution that was thrown onto them. So I will call upon the summarizer from the proposing side, who is Mr. Mafipe Chunga from KPMG. Please, let's give him a hand.
Okay, from the proposing side, we're saying that Zambian businesses have limited themselves, okay? Anybody who has ever failed will know that there's an automatic defense mechanism that comes into play. You go to collect that exam result, you failed, and you say, oh gosh, when I get home, I need to explain what happened here. The lecturer was bad, the exam was difficult, there were all sorts of things happening in the exam day, you didn't give me enough pocket money, etc. And those are all excuses. What you've heard from this team here is a series of excuses we've been hearing since 1964. The population is too small, I don't have capital, my workers were stealing, otherwise this would have been a good business. The government is to blame for this. All of those are excuses put in place for people to defend themselves and explain why they have failed. What we need to do is put all of those to one side and look at what we can do differently to succeed as Zambian business people, because we'll never change those factors. Just focus on what you can change. 3 points that kept on coming up. the excuses. Number one, we don't have enough capital. Number two, I guess it's strategy. So number one, we don't have enough capital. If that were true, Zambia, that has up to 3 times the capital circulating of Malawi, ought to have had businesses opening there all the time. When I look at the entrepreneurs in here, how many of you have already made a plan for Malawi expansion? Probably very few. I went to Malawi recently. I couldn't see any Zambian businesses. I saw Zoona, but that was the only one. The second one is the fear of failure. Quite often, when you fail, you're looking for that defense mechanism, those excuses that we've created. What you need to realize is that the greater the risk, the greater the reward. And it's kind of linear. More risk, more reward. Right now, we're in a situation where our reward is very low, which probably means we've taken the wrong types of risk. We need to reassess how we plan things. And I'll give an example. 40 years ago, Zambian Parastatal, Zambia Airways, was sitting in a board meeting and they said, we will open an office in Frankfurt. Today, if somebody stood up and said, we are opening an office in Frankfurt, you'd be washed down with a chorus of no's, excuses, and explanations why it can't be done. It can be done. It was done 40 years ago by our grandparents' generation who didn't have the skills, experience, and capital that we're talking about. It's down to the entrepreneurs. It's down to that spirit of saying, when I fail, I will own that failure and say, it was me, I take responsibility, I'll make adjustments and I'm going to fix this, rather than the population is too small, I don't have the capital, nobody gave me the money. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chunga. And now we're going to have the last and final speaker of this debate, and this person will come from the opposing side. This is no other than Simone Zambian from Bongo Hive. Let's give him a hand.
Sipo Piri, Mark O'Donnell, Joe Pope, Caesar Siwale, Jita Kayumba, Sylvia Banda, Lawrence Sikutwa, Bijoynet Kaden, Mabin Mudenda, Abel Ngandu, Ravi Devalia, Rocky Sombe, David Kombe, Stephen Mulenga, Mikadile, Caesar Siwale, Brad McGrath, Monica Msonda, Chisha Foltier, David Nama, Irene Mutalima, Temwe, Mwitunga, Dolika Banda, Benjamin Kantuia, and if we wouldn't have known him if he hadn't gone into politics, Hakainde Hichilema. What my proponents are trying to tell you is that these people think small. The challenge we have in Zambia is a question of visibility. The fact that we do not see entrepreneurs, even entrepreneurs that have done well in our, for example, in our media, we get the impression that we are doing nothing. Now, there are 2 factors to this. First thing is business is going on in Zambia, and they are Zambian-owned businesses. The elephant in the room could be Trade Kings. A company that started off in 1995, starting off and competing against Dynamo and Surf, and has grown in 2000, at least by 2012, was shipping off more than 500 tons of goods every day, and expanded to things like Nyama Soya, Amazon Lollipops, with a manufacturing network in South Africa. So the question then is, if you do not see people, does it mean that they do not exist? Or as the famous phrase is, if you walk into, if a tree falls in the forest and you do not hear it, does it mean that it made a sound? So, what we need to take recognition of is entrepreneurs first and foremost exist. Entrepreneurs who think large and entrepreneurs who think big. But we also need to recognize that the journey of an entrepreneur can sometimes be very, very long. So when we get to know them in their very, very early stages, we think of them as small entrepreneurs, not realizing that sometimes it takes a while before we actually see the fruit of them. Let's take the example of Sipo Piri, who recently gave a talk at TEDx Lusaka. He spent 5 years he's trying to build a power station in Western Province. He spent 5 years trying to raise the money for that station. As far as you're concerned, he's done nothing because you haven't seen it. He's going to spend another 5 years to build the actual power station and then another 10 years on top of that to pay back the money that he's borrowed. Now that's the risk. 20 years for one dream to come true. And 20 years before you can claim that, he can actually claim that it's completely owned, it's a business completely owned by him or his family, or the other shareholders that would be involved in that project. So, when the proponents claim that capital is not a problem, then it's not an excuse that we create, but it's an excuse that has been investigated in and has been reported on by, for example, in 2017, Village Capital, supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, acknowledging that the opportunity indeed existed in Africa, and it was knocking, but yet there were too few investors. In Kenya, for example, 72% of startups that received funding in 2015 and 2016 went to 3 companies. This is in the digital financial sector. Other companies in that place took up is where the money went to 28%. But what are the challenges facing this? First and foremost, the human capital trap. And the human capital trap means if you're going to attract human capital to work for you, you need money to be able to pay the best skills. To attract the best skills, you need money to be able to pay them. But if you don't have the money to pay them, you can't attract the best skills. So how do you grow and scale? What about business model constraints? We're talking about building businesses in a place where we talk about digital scale and digital growth in countries where we're still trying to grow the networks that can actually get to place. But more importantly, what about the networks? It's been known that most investors in the West will prefer to who are also taking a risk in investing in a country like Zambia, would prefer to invest in companies which are run by fellow Westerners. Now that's a trust issue, and we can't blame them for that. So if you, the Zambian, do not have somebody from Harvard on your team, or somebody who went to Yale on your team, the likelihood of you actually raising money from somebody from the outside is going to be very little. So unless we start to address that by getting local people to start investing in local companies, to put the money together to start investing in local companies, then we'll start to get the people that grow big to us is to actually see the growth that is going to happen. Otherwise, it continues to be a very, very long journey. So, in response to trademarks and the measure of trademarks in Israel versus Zambia, that is not a pure indication of growth that actually happens in a country. What are you going to say about a country like South Korea that only has 5 huge companies that actually drive their economy and yet are bigger than most countries, economically bigger than countries in Africa? Education on intellectual property is still happening in Zambia. The fact that the University of Zambia that you built in the 1960s did not have a business school until last year is a problem that we still need to deal with. So you have graduated engineers that still do not know how to monetize and commercialize on the ideas that they've got. They've got big dreams, they just don't know how. Thank you.
All right, so right about now, all shots have been fired, all stones have been thrown. This is a part where we get to judge and know which side has won. So apparently, I'm not going to be the judge of this debate because I heard a good side coming from this side and I heard something good coming from this side. Apparently, I'm undecided. So the judging team is you, the audience. You are the people who have to judge this debate. So in your packs, as you came through, you noticed that you have a green and red card embedded in your pack. So what's going to happen is right about now, all of you are going to go back to number 0 concerning the connection to this motion. All your personal bias or biases towards this motion will have to be cancelled, and you now judge this motion according to how established the claim was from either side of the panel. You're also going to judge which panel had the solid evidence or the relevant evidence. You're also going to judge which side had an impact towards you, which side persuaded you the most. You're also going to judge how logical did each speaker speak? How logical was each team? Those are the things you have to consider as you are judging. Let's not be connected because you're an entrepreneur and say, no, these people are talking about us, so I'll go against the other guys. No. So let's follow that criteria for now. So the green card is you voting yes to the proposing team, saying the proposing team did it for me, and the red card says, no, I think the opposing team did it for me. So take a deep breath, think twice, maybe 3 times. Don't look at their faces. Maybe you might be looking at people who may help you in future and whatnot. Don't look at their faces. Think twice, maybe 3 times. Don't look at their faces. Maybe you might be looking at people who may help you in future and whatnot. Don't look at their faces. Maybe you might be looking at people who may help you in future and whatnot. Don't look at their faces. it's about that time. In the next 3 seconds, you're just going to raise whichever card you pick. Don't raise both of them, but raise one as high as you can. So in 3, 2, 1, let's see those cards. Well, even though I don't have an eagle's eye, but 50 plus 1 takes it all. The red side has won, and that is the opposing team. Congratulations to the opposers, and congratulations to the proposing team as well for participating. And it has been a lovely debate. I have learned something, and hope you entrepreneurs have also got one or two few things as to why maybe you think too small, or as to why you're not using the resources properly, or maybe an idea that makes you think too big and you haven't just used it. So right about now, I'll hand over to Mr. Nkonge, who will drive this show on further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nchima, and thank you very much to the team for that hotly debated or hotly battled debate. For me personally, it was too close to call. I don't know about you, but for me it was, so very close to call. Congratulations to the speakers for your well-delivered arguments, and also congratulations to the winning team, of course.